Hi, I'm Liz Scarf. I'm a Processwork diplomate and one of the trainers for the Melbourne Processwork Intensive. And in this little video, I wanted to answer the question, what is Processwork? It's a big field and a really big topic and a difficult thing to kind of put into an easy, concise formulation, but I'm going to have a go. It's also a very experiential paradigm, so seeing it in action makes a lot more sense than trying to describe it. But I'm still going to try and describe it and maybe use some metaphors and a few examples, see how we go. Essentially, process work is about learning how to follow nature and helping it unfold when it kind of gets stuck. It doesn't really tell you much. If you know anything about Taoism, you know that's actually what Taoism is. It's about how to follow and align oneself to nature. Process work is a little bit like modern day Taoism in some ways, but it also breaks down what is a framework and a structure for following nature. So you're not just kind of following little things randomly here and there, and gives you skills to actually be able to follow nature. I'm going to explain a bit more about that. And the kind of attitudes and personal development you need to be able to do that authentically and congruently. So when we say following nature, what do we actually mean following communication signals primarily, not only, but mostly. So we train to look for or be able to notice very subtle and symbolic signals of the process of nature, and then also learning how to actually unfold those and help them so they can be understood. Now, what do I mean by signals? I mean communication signals, right? All the time we're communicating. This is one of the 5 axioms, Paul Watzlawick, a communication theorist, which is it informs a lot of process work, because you can't not communicate unless you're dead or something. So you're always communicating, even if you're saying absolutely nothing. So there's always signals that are happening in your body, in the field around you, that are communicating something. Now, as I'm chatting to you in this video, I'm communicating, and I have things that I'm intending to communicate. You know, I want to try and explain process work, and there's also going to be other things that I am communicating that I'm not intending to communicate, and you might pick them up in strange signals of my hand or pauses in my language, or sometimes I might be louder or quieter. It could be a whole range of very subtle, small signals that indicate that there's something else trying to be communicated other than just the thing that's intended. So we often want to say or want to come across or want to identify in a certain way, and there's other parts of us or other messages that also want to be heard, but that we disavow or we marginalize. And so a lot of process work is looking for those signals, those unintended communication signals, the odd things that don't make sense, and then going, okay, let's get curious about that. We don't interpret signals is a big difference between process work and other modalities or practices that might work with body signals or things. So we don't go, she's got her arms crossed, therefore she's... We go, oh, someone's got their arms crossed. How interesting. I wonder what that means. Is that intended? What's behind that? And so then we work with those actual signals to find out from them, from the actual signal, what's the message, what's the thing, what's the part of identity, what is it that's in that signal. And we also work with signals in particular in the communication channels that they happen in. So maybe something like an arms crossed signal, it's not a subtle signal, by the way, that's fairly obvious. But you know, we go, okay, what kind of channel of communication is that happening in? It's a posture. So it's partly a movement channel potentially. It may also come with other signals or experiences that the person is having but that we cannot see yet. So there might be a feeling happening there as well, and we call this a proprioceptive or a feeling-based signal. And then, so a little stutter like I did just then, or a pause, or the change in the way someone's speaking, like how fast, how loud, you know, whether it's monotonous or intoned quite a lot. All those will also be other signals that we might be hearing. We'd say that in an auditory channel, the sounds that people make unintentionally, the things they say to others, or different sounds that might happen in the field around them. And then we'd also, you know, there might be visual channels, and the way that people talk about something might indicate that they're seeing something, or we work with a dream in that channel as well. So there's multiple different channels, and I won't go into them all, but it's about looking for and training your own awareness in multiple different ways to be able to notice these signals And then what do you do with them as well? And then how do you also help someone unfold something that they've been disavowing or against or not supporting in their lives for a really long time? So it's not just as simple as going, hey, you've got an interesting signal going there, let's just check that out, because for some people that's going to be terrifying. So there's a whole bunch of skills about how we negotiate and navigate the actual unfolding of our own processes as well. We can't always just dive in and get to the juicy, material that was unknown, and so that it's more complicated than just noticing and unfolding, but that's essentially a lot of what we're doing. And one thing I want to give you an example of it. Say I had a headache and I'm saying to you, I've got this headache, it's like this really crushing kind of just in that like 2-second statement and how I've shown you my experience of it. There's like a gazillion different signals and bits of information about the experience that I'm having well beyond a headache. So I've demonstrated how do I access it, how do I experience it. There's like these hands that grab my head and crush it. So in process work would go, okay, there's at least 2 parts here, like there is in all communications. There's a sender and a receiver, or someone sending a message and someone experiencing or having a reaction. So the one who has a reaction is the person with a headache, which is how I identify I have a headache. So even in the language structure, it's there. And then, but there's someone crushing my brain and making it sore. So this is like the sender of the signal or the communication. Now, if I just use my everyday brain, my everyday sort of rational thinking, I could go, oh, there's a part of me that wants to crush my brain and make me maybe think less or something like, and it's just, it has a rationality to it, but it's not actually working with that signal and going, okay, if I was to become this part that crushes a brain and to actually act it out and become it, shapeshift into it and live it, this is partly how we would unfold and invite a signal to be more known, is by actually becoming it or activating it, unfolding it, amplifying it in some way, not just thinking about it. So that's one of the fabulous things about process work, but that is also sometimes intimidating, is that we don't just think about signals. We also work out, we really get into them and help them unfold in their own way, in their own style. And this is what we talk about in process work when we're talking about signal awareness a lot. But there is also something else we practice, or that's part of the learning, is to learn around pattern awareness, which is about trying to understand what's more known to someone in an experience they're having, like the one who's having a headache, what's less known, the one who crushes a brain or, squeezes tightly on something. That's less known to me because it's kind of happening to me, and this is part of the pattern. Now, if I was just following signals without any sense of what the pattern is around what's more or less known, I could follow the signal of someone suffering from the sore head. And it's valid, and it's, there could be things gotten from it, but it's not actually where the juice or the meat of the experience lays. It's sometimes exactly what needs to happen, because I might also be marginalising my own suffering. There could be multiple things. There's not just what I know and what I don't know. There's a continuum of things I can identify and know about myself and things that I can't. And jumping sometimes right to the most extreme is not always most helpful. But anyway, I think I'm going down a tangent. I'm going to come back. Another way I think about describing this idea of unfolding nature and helping it when it gets stuck, because I often think, well, isn't the stuckness just part of nature too? And yes, it is actually, because we partly get stuck in our own unfolding because of cultural messages we get about who we should or shouldn't be, or family experiences in our life that have been really tough, can leave us with a whole range of difficulties and challenges at welcoming our own diversity and our own kind of fullness, our own power, our own creativity, our own leadership, all kinds of things. And so we do get stuck, and often we need help with some of that stuckness. Not always, but I kind of think of it like trying to describe, to say that like the beginnings of a new river back many tens of thousands of years ago. It's just a trickle coming down from a mountain, and it hits a big rock, and it's kind of going, right, I'm going to have to wear down this rock to keep going and to be this river that is my destiny to become, right? But after a while it could be a little difficult, and the river could go, you know what, this is just really hard, I just can't do this. I'm just going to stay as a little pond actually. Now, a lot of us make those kind of choices. A lot of the time things get difficult or it's too hard to kind of live our fullness, so we settle for something smaller because the obstacle is too difficult to navigate on our own. So that's partly what process work facilitators help people and help groups navigate those stuck points so that they can keep moving and keep flowing rather than settling for less. When you settle for less than your full self, you can get depressed, you can get a little sick, or a whole range of things. I don't say that in a way that it's blaming. It's just kind of normal. We marginalise things all the time, or marginalise our full nature and our potentiality a lot because it's hard work a lot of the time. Trying to wear down that rock, or keeping on going with something. It can be really difficult, and there's a range of experiences in our life that can also make that really difficult. Oh, and here's the promo word, snuffleupagus. Snuffleupagus. What's Snuffy's name from Sesame Street? Let's say snuffleupagus. Snuffleupagus. I don't know. Let's just say Snuffy. Snuffy is the word. Okay, back on track with our river. Oh, maybe I don't need to say much more about that. Hopefully that metaphor kind of makes sense that, we sometimes our own nature, we do get stuck. Things get a little difficult and we need help to kind of keep that unfolding. Not always, but often we do, because also marginalising is and disavowing parts of our experience, we need to do that. We can't take notice of every single signal in the field. We can't unfold every single thing, and we sometimes need to do stuff just to live, to eat, to earn money, to put a roof over our heads. Sometimes we just have to prioritise certain things over others, and so they get marginalised, which is totally normal, and we need to do that. And if we keep doing it too much for certain parts of our diversity, we can become unwell, psychologically, physically, relationally. We can end up with a lot of relationship conflicts, and all those things are really juicy experiences if you can work with them. Otherwise they're just kind of suffering and they suck and they're difficult. So process work, often people come and see process work facilitators, therapists, coaches, that kind of thing, when they get to that point where their suffering is around their stuckness is just a little too much to kind of live with anymore, or they're just really curious and interested. So that's a little bit about what process work is in a nutshell. So the kind of things we train in and what we're going to be covering in the process work intensive is the framework itself, the actual structure, and how we understand or structure noticing nature. And there's different levels of awareness with that, and there's kind of different aspects of what's more and less known and what sits in the middle of that, what we call the edge. We're also going to be looking at the kind of skills, the different styles or types of focusing and awareness that we bring to working with a process, and a whole range of other things. And not just skills for, here you need to learn this, this and this, but also looking at what is your own natural style, what we call meta skills. What is your way and your particular flavour or style that you will bring to your work as you unfold nature and work with processes, with people and groups. And we also will explore different attitudes and beliefs that are within the process work paradigm. So for instance, that things are meaningful and that your subjective experience, the way I experience my headache, is meaningful. The fact that there's a clamping hands kind of thing, that's meaningful. I could have described it in a different way, and I could have said, there's this like thumping kind of. Those two are really different, and we say for a reason. There's meaning in those differences and the different ways we experience things, and that my crushing headache will also unfold differently to your crushing headache. So that meaningful, it's an attitude or a belief that's in process work. Deep democracy is another one, in that, to work through or unfold any kind of issue or problem, we need to find all the different roles and parts that are involved in that. We can't exclude, so, I don't like this part of myself, or I don't like this person in the group, therefore I'm just going to ignore them or exclude them or kick them out or not pay attention to them. We actually go, you know what, there's something valuable in there too. We might not like it to start with, or we might not like the presentation, the way it's communicating initially, but then once we unfold it, and we can kind of go, that maybe there is a place for that too, and how does that fit in? And so there's a range of different attitudes and beliefs in there as well. And then also a huge emphasis in process work is the personal development of the facilitator. Now I say facilitator, you could be working in groups, you could be working with individuals, it's just a catch-all in this context. But that your actual personal development, your capacity to notice signals is dependent on your personal development, because if you in your own work continually disavow and ignore and refuse to see the things you don't want to see in yourself, then it's very difficult for you to be able to go do that with others in a way that doesn't come across as judgmental or give mixed signals about the welcomeness of those diverse signals. So the more, and we say you burn your own wood, the more you work on your own stuff and burn your own wood, the better you're going to be equipped to really congruently and curiously unfold and support signals that are happening in the people or the groups that you work with, or with yourself. It's a big part of process work, is what we call inner work, is how do you actually work with those kind of unintended signals in yourself. So hopefully that kind of that answers maybe some questions about what is process work a little. There's a lot more to it, because it's also kind of related to, we draw on Jungian, I think my video's moving, Jungian psychology a lot. We also draw on shamanic traditions, communication theory, quantum physics. These are kind of the major places process work draws. Some in Taoism, like I said before. Yeah, it keeps moving. Here we go. So yeah, anyway, that covers just a brief snapshot of what is process work, and then also how does that relate to a little bit of what we're going to be doing in the intensive. So tomorrow I'm going to post another video. I'm going to be covering what's in it for helping professionals, and then the next day, or maybe I'll do 2 tomorrow, what's in it for people who are just looking for personal development. So we'll check out those then. Okay, thanks for watching. Bye.